Long after the guns fell silent across Europe, another kind of reckoning began, not on battlefields, but inside courtrooms heavy with memory. In Nuremberg, a city once used for grand rallies and propaganda spectacles, justice unfolded in a quieter, but far more unsettling form. Here, the world gathered not only to judge crimes, but to confront a disturbing question: how ordinary professionals, doctors, administrators, officials, became participants in extraordinary cruelty. Please remember, your likes are a big help. The doctor's trial opened in a courtroom still marked by the physical scars of war. Observers noted how sunlight filtered through windows onto rows of benches, filled with translators, journalists, and German civilians who had come to watch history take shape. Many sat in silence, some taking notes, others simply staring, as if trying to reconcile what they were about to hear with the reality of their own recent past. One curiosity often overlooked is that the tribunal was not only a legal process but also a psychological one. American judges presided, yet every word spoken passed through headphones into multiple languages. Justice itself had to be translated, a reminder that the crimes being examined crossed borders, cultures, and moral frameworks. As the indictment was read, the atmosphere reportedly grew heavier by the minute. The list of charges stretched across themes that had never before been fully defined in law: crimes against humanity, medical atrocities, conspiracies that blurred the line between state policy and personal responsibility. Among the accused sat men who had once held prestigious titles: university professors, military surgeons, researchers celebrated in professional circles. Their presence raised a chilling curiosity. How could the language of healing coexist with systems of harm? When each defendant was asked to stand and declare a plea, observers noticed subtle details: a tightening of hands, the straightening of uniforms, brief glances exchanged among co-defendants. Every single one declared not guilty. For many listening, this moment revealed something profound about human nature. Denial can persist even when the evidence is overwhelming. The only woman among the accused drew particular attention. Reporters at the time wrote about how her presence disrupted expectations, reminding the public that participation in the machinery of the regime cut across gender as well as profession. Outside the courtroom, Germany itself was undergoing a strange transformation. Cities that once symbolized power now struggled simply to feed their populations. In Berlin, vast parklands were converted into farmland. The famous Tiergarten, once a place of strolls, concerts, and quiet afternoons, became a patchwork of vegetable plots. Residents planted potatoes where families had once picnicked. Children carried watering cans past monuments scarred by shrapnel. British tractors rumbled across the soil, an image both practical and symbolic. Former enemies now helping cultivate survival. This blending of ruin and renewal became one of the quiet curiosities of the post-war years. Daily life resumed not through grand gestures, but through small acts: planting seeds, repairing windows, rebuilding routines. Meanwhile, in other courts across occupied Germany, further trials unfolded. At Dachau, proceedings addressed crimes committed within concentration camps. Witnesses spoke of conditions that seemed almost beyond comprehension, and yet the court insisted on methodical procedure. Evidence was cataloged, testimonies recorded, verdicts delivered one by one. Observers described the ritual of sentencing as both solemn and unsettling. Defendants stepped forward individually, hearing judgments that carried the weight of thousands of lost lives. For many in attendance, the repetition itself became symbolic, a reminder that accountability, like justice, must be applied case by case. One detail frequently noted by journalists was the quiet demeanor of the courtroom staff. Clerks shuffled papers, guards stood watch, interpreters listened intently. Even these small movements contributed to the atmosphere, a sense that the machinery of law was attempting to restore order after years defined by its absence. Behind every name called lay stories of individuals who had exercised authority in ways that led to suffering on a massive scale. Yet the trials also revealed something more complex: the banality of bureaucratic language that had once masked horrific outcomes. Documents presented in court often appeared routine: memos, signatures, administrative orders, until their consequences were explained. Across Germany, citizens grappled with these revelations in different ways. Some attended trials out of curiosity, others out of a desire to understand, and some perhaps to reassure themselves that a line existed between their own lives and the actions being judged. In towns and villages, conversations unfolded quietly. Markets reopened, churches filled, schools resumed classes. Yet beneath the surface lingered questions that had no easy answers. How does a society rebuild trust? How does memory coexist with the need to move forward? Even the physical landscape reflected this tension. Bombed buildings stood beside newly repaired homes. Rubble was cleared not only from streets, but from daily routines. The process was uneven, sometimes painful, often marked by moments of reflection. The trials themselves became a form of public education. For the first time, concepts such as medical ethics, informed consent, and the responsibilities of professionals under authoritarian "Please remember, your likes are a big help" systems were discussed in global forums. What had once been considered internal matters now carried international significance. Historians later noted that these proceedings helped shape modern understandings of human rights. Yet at the time, the experience felt immediate and personal. Survivors testified, families listened, and the world watched, learning sometimes reluctantly about the consequences of unchecked power. As weeks turned into months, verdicts accumulated. Some sentences were severe, others less so, but each contributed to a broader narrative: the attempt to define justice in the aftermath of unprecedented violence. Meanwhile, everyday life continued its slow return. Gardens produced harvests, trains resumed schedules, and communities adapted to new realities. Children who had known only war began to grow up in a different atmosphere, one marked by uncertainty but also possibility. Looking back, the period stands as a moment of profound transition. Courtrooms became arenas not only of judgment, but of reflection. Cities became classrooms where lessons about responsibility and resilience were learned through lived experience. The stories emerging from these years remind us that history is not only shaped by leaders and events, but also by the countless individuals who witness, remember, and rebuild. In the end, the legacy of those trials extends beyond legal precedent. It lies in the recognition that even in the aftermath of devastation, societies seek meaning, asking difficult questions, confronting uncomfortable truths, and striving, however imperfectly, toward a future informed by the past.